Hi everyone, this is the tech talk for Great Gatsby the game, and this is based off of the actual book The Great Gatsby by Scott Fitzgerald, and it was a project for a English class that I did with a friend of mine. So I'm going to go ahead and get started with the mechanics. So for the flashing, all you have to do is have a time interval, and every other time interval you get rid of the text, and the other interval you show the text, and this will create this sort of flashing text that people may be familiar with from old-fashioned games. I'm going to go ahead and press enter, get right into the game. The first scene here shows a room with the character that you will be controlling, Nick, and an elevator at the top and two pathways, one at the right, one at the left. And I would like to note that this is my first game that I inputted audio, so I'm very happy about that. It has a nice soundtrack to match the game, and the intro had a different set of soundtracks. And I'm going to go ahead and get started with the moving. So since this is a desktop game, all the inputs are keyboard based, and the inputs are fairly simple: right to move right, down to move down, left to move left, and right up to move up. And what I was trying to accomplish by turning the book into a game was to provide an alternative way to allow people to understand the plot of the book without actually reading it. So my game kind of tells the whole story of The Great Gatsby without actually having to read the book if you're like me and if you're not an avid reader. So I'm gonna go ahead and get right into a room, and every room has a character that is part of the novel. And in this room we have Tom. Tom is also a pretty crucial character in the book. And as you can see, Tom just walks around randomly, and if you get close enough to him, a box with the exclamation mark appears. And all I really did there was every few steps I create a random integer from 1 to 4, and depending on what that is, each number corresponds to a different direction, and that sets the direction of the character. And then the text box, or not the text box, but the exclamation mark in the box appearing is all just pixel detection of how far the images are using the Pythagorean theorem. And if you press enter when the text box is there, it brings you right into the conversation, and the conversation, most of the conversation in the game is snippets of exact quotes from the book, and you can press enter to go through it. And to have sort of this string show up in a text box in a fitted way without having a huge blob, I had to create a string cutting method that cuts up the strings so that everything fits in the box and puts them in an array and iterates through the whole thing. But yeah, so you might be wondering why we have an elevator. It's Great Gatsby the novel in a game, so how is the elevator relevant? I wanted to have a mechanic for the players to move through the chapters in the book, and I thought an elevator would be a pretty cool way to move through chapters, since elevators are used to move through buildings or move through the floors of the building. So if I press enter, I get this box saying chapter 1 through 9, and you could actually move through the chapters using the right and left arrow keys, and you press enter when you decide on what chapter you want to go to. And then as you saw a vibrating to sort of just show an animation that the elevator is actually interacting, and all I really did there was just literally move it right, move it left, and repeat that for a certain amount of time. So I'm gonna go ahead and get out, and let's see who we have here. So we have Tom again. Every chapter at least has one character and could have more than one character depending on the chapter. The chapter only includes characters that were actually relevant. So I'm gonna go ahead and talk to him again. As you can see, the text is completely different from what we had at the previous chapter. And now let me go ahead and move to a different chapter where we have more than just Tom. So let me take a quick moment to explain to you how the setups of the room was made. So if you're familiar with object-oriented programming, you might know about linked lists. So the rooms are created similar to how linked lists are used. Every room object has two rooms, a right room and a left room, and it has a elevator, which is right here. So every time I go to the right, it sets the current room to current room's right room, and then same thing with the left. And this allows the transitioning of the rooms. And actually, if you just keep going right, it brings you all the way back to right here if you just keep going. And the part that actually moves to different rooms is just boundary checking with pixel checking to see if you're actually going past the boundaries. So I'm going to go ahead and go to this room, and as you can see, it's not Tom anymore, it's Gatsby. I'm just going to go ahead and skip the dialogue. And there's Tom again, and I believe this chapter Daisy was also a part of, and there we go, we have Daisy. So now let me go ahead and show a different feature of the game. So it's not just, instead of just having dialogues, I also wanted to implement key events in the story. So I'm just going to go ahead and show you one of those events. As you can see, Gatsby is just walking like usual, and I don't want to ruin the book for anyone, so if you are afraid of spoilers, please this is the last part of the game, so you could go ahead and pause it right here and move on. So in chapter 8, Gatsby actually gets shot and he dies, and I wanted to show that as an event. So if you actually talk to him, he says, "Where's the Daisy that I know and love? She must be out there somewhere. I feel so lost and lonely. I could just about die." Now, that's pretty ironic. I just inserted there for the irony. We exit out of the room and come back. He is actually dead. And these little events, all you have to do is have a boolean to check if the player has encountered the interaction, and if they have, I just set it to true, and then if they come back and if the interaction has already been taken, then I make Gatsby dead. And that was just a simple in story events, and that's pretty much it for Great Gatsby the game. Thank you so much for watching.